My name is Hallie Palomar, and today I will be presenting Where's the Me in Media? So my topic is lack of Asian American representation in pop culture and media. So why did I choose this topic? Growing up, I rarely saw my own kind on television or films. I remember being 8 and seeing the movie High School Musical. When I found out that one of the characters, Gabriella, was half Filipino, it made me proud to be Asian American, and it made me realize how important representation was and how special it can make you feel. Also, I believe that media is universal. It's easily accessed by anyone, and it's how the news is received. It's a form of entertainment and even provides employment opportunities for many. So, for example, if one were African American, it would just be really discouraging to view the news, movies, TV shows that feature only white Americans. It's really not the most accurate thing because in reality, the world is extremely diverse. And if an Asian American or African American child living, let's say, in the rural areas were to grow up watching movies that only feature white folks with large mansions and expensive cars, this child would immediately feel inferior, and it would definitely affect his or her self-esteem. So, this is my thesis statement, and at the top it shows my topic, which is lack of Asian American representation in pop culture and media. And my thesis is, although Asian American representation has progressed in pop culture and media, they still face a lack of representation in the United States, leading to feelings of inferiority. This just means that, yes, Asian Americans has made big strides in the pop culture and media industry, but they are still to this day facing a lack of representation. And it does still cause some of us feeling inferior compared to white Americans. So a lot of researchers believe that this lack of representation on film goes back to the Hays Code, which was enforced in around the 1930s, and it was a set of rules that governed American films, and basically it banned depictions of interracial relations and any type of relationship between minorities and white Americans. So for example, if one were an Asian American, they were not allowed to be seen on screen having any type of relationship with a white American. So this just made it extremely difficult for Asian Americans to gain visibility on films in the US, and it's believed to be one of the reasons why till this day Asian Americans are still fighting for equal representation, because they weren't really seen on screen until the Hays Code was finally abolished in the 1960s. This kind of delayed their chance of, having equal representation. So what's the issue here? This is a power imbalance in the United States. Asian Americans assume that their features are unacceptable to be viewed by the American audience. They feel that they have to look a certain way, they have to have a certain skin tone, or just have certain features that white Americans have just to be acceptable to the American audience. This definitely decreases our children's self-esteem because kids grow up watching TV, watching movies, listening to music. Kids grow up in front of screens. This also promotes inequality and increases xenophobia and racial bias. A form of lack of representation also ties back to the theory of yellowface. So yellowface is basically, in Hollywood, the act of whitewashing a film. Basically, what white Americans would do back then, and some still do to this day, is they would darken their faces, they would use prosthetics and wear costumes to appear Asian. They would also speak gibberish just to imitate the Asian accent. This is not only racist, but it definitely hinders the possibility of people of color seeing themselves represented on film. Asian Americans have missed out on so many opportunities of playing a role on the big screen just because of yellowface. For example, in the movie Doctor Strange, on the top left, this actress is named Tilda Swinton. In the comics, Marvel Comics, an Asian man plays her character, but in the movie, she is a white woman playing the role of an Asian man. So instead of an actual Asian man being able to play a role in the big screen, she took that job. She took that spot. And she's not even a man. She's not Asian either. So that's what I mean by Asian Americans have probably already missed out on so many opportunities to be able to represent their race and represent their ethnicity on films and TV shows. So the below that is the bottom left is a Netflix show called Death Note. So basically it was an anime that's based in Japan with Japanese characters, but unfortunately white Americans are the ones who are playing those roles in the live action remake on Netflix. And on the right side, you see top right, there is a man. Basically, this is from Prince of Persia, and he is white. He is not Persian, but he is playing the role of a Persian prince. And I'm just saying, an actual talented Persian actor could have played his part. And this one's really famous. So the Avatar Last Airbender, their live action was played by white actors, which is not the most accurate because the actual Nickelodeon cartoon was based in East Asia and was heavily influenced by East Asian culture. And even looking at the characters on the bottom right, they do not look Asian to me. They do not look white Americans to me. They looked Asian American. Or no, I'm sorry. They do not look white to me. They just look Asian. But on the film, white Americans are playing their characters. So it's not really accurate. So how does this relate to the power? So in real life, Asian Americans feel inferior to white Americans, and women in the power feel inferior to men. They were harshly abused and they had significantly less rights compared to men. Asian Americans in real life feel powerless just as women felt in the power, because it's really almost impossible to reach the amount of representation that white Americans have already achieved in pop culture and the media industry. It's also almost impossible for them to even earn proper recognition in award shows. Even though there's so many talented Asian American actors, singers, producers out there. Just as in real life, women feel powerless because they did not have as much freedom as men did, and they always felt as if male supremacy will always be an issue in their world. That's the same thing that Asian Americans feel. They always feel as if no matter what happens, white Americans will always be superior. They'll always be playing the big roles on TV. They'll always be winning all the Academy Awards, all of the Grammys, and it just almost seems really impossible to earn that same amount of representation that white Americans have already achieved. However, despite all of this, it is getting a little bit better. I chose 3 specific examples on proof of why it's getting better. So in film, the movie Crazy Rich Asians became the highest grossing comedy of the last 10 years and the 6th highest grossing comedy movie ever, which is really important because this is an all Asian American cast and they are based in Singapore. The movie was based in Singapore, so it definitely does raise a lot of awareness, and being that it was so successful, it made history in the box office. I think that is a huge progress compared to back then in the 1930s through 60s when Hays Code was implied and they weren't even allowed to be seen on screen with white American actors. In the TV industry, the show Fresh Off the Boat became the first all Asian American casted show since 1994. Not only did it bring Asian Americans into the spotlight, but it also really allowed them to raise awareness about their culture and eliminate a lot of stereotypes. In the music industry, the American musical collective 88 Rising has made big strides in the music industry by launching their first Asian American music festival last summer in the US. So basically, 88 Rising is a collective of musicians. There are female artists, there are male rappers, there are R&B male singers, and there's also a few groups, and they created this Asian American music festival. It's a huge concert of all of them, and it was very successful. Two of their members, Joji and Rich Brian, became the first Asian-born artists to top the Billboard R&B and hip-hop charts, as well as the first Asian artist to land a #1 hip-hop album on the iTunes charts. So these are really awesome evidence and progress that it's getting a little bit better. However, it still is an issue, but at least it's getting a little bit better. So here are some possible solutions that I thought of that would probably help increase representation for Asian Americans in pop culture and media. So I believe that films and TV shows must implement a set of rules that would indicate if they're allowed to be aired, and these set of rules must have the requirement of how diverse the show or film is. So the requirement has to be that they must reach a level of diversity within the team and the cast, or else it cannot be aired. But there are certain exceptions to this. For example, if a director really feels as if a cast should only be one race, for example Black Panther or Crazy Rich Asians, then that would be the only exception. But
hates class.
if that's not the case,
you guys want to see
then
this?
the team and
11:59. Do today. Do today. 11:59. Do today. 11:59.
film
Essay.
should have
75 points.
a
Quiz.
diverse cast,
Practicum. 42
or else
points.
it should not be
Frick,
aired.
dude.
Number 2, they should create more films and TV shows that have
what did I turn
minority
in?
races play dominant roles. For example,
Yeah,
I believe that
it's
on
this
TV,
one.
it's always the white American actor
I just
playing
freaking went on the
lead
App Store.
role
See
and
how you
the
stupid follow
minority
Mar.
actor
Stupid
playing
freaking
the supporting role. And I believe that it's important to see Asian Americans, or not just Asian Americans, but minority
It doesn't show
races
his
to be
face,
playing
but this is his voice.
dominant characters, successful characters, lead characters, not just characters that
Wait, I want to
are the supporting to the white American lead character. Award shows must also have a requirement
You're my class.
to be inclusive with their choice of nominees. This is seen in the Oscars and the Grammys. It's always white Americans winning, white Americans being nominated. I do believe that they should implement a set of requirements of being inclusive with their choice of nominees, so that everyone has a chance to win an award and earn their proper recognition. Number 4, more Asian Americans and other minority races must gain the audience's attention by forming more musical collectives. So this is kind of in the music industries. If more talented minority artists form musical collectives and kind of gather up together and do something big, do an album together, then they can definitely gain attention from the audience and create something as successful as the Asian American musical festival that happened last summer with the group 88 Rising. And lastly, radio stations and news channels must hire more Asian American hosts so that it's normalized, so that it'll be a little more normal to see Asian Americans or minority races on TV, and so that it's normalized for them to be viewed by a large audience. So, Asian Americans are still fighting to this day for an equal representation in the United States, and I think that this battle is really necessary because it will alleviate feelings of inferiority one day. And I think that once this issue of power imbalance is solved, there will be a significant decrease in acts of racism and xenophobia towards Asian Americans. I believe that if equal representation is achieved, it will definitely raise awareness for all ethnic groups, and it will just allow the world to be more understanding and accepting towards one another. This change is so necessary because it can promote peace and inclusiveness, which is really crucial in order for a nation to flourish. So that is my presentation. I hope you learned something, and I really chose this topic because it was close to my heart. I hope you have a good day, and if you have any questions, just reply to this video. Thank you.